I actually think Abdullah Sameer, personally, I think he is genuine and a sincere person. Like sometimes you get some ex-Muslims or atheists, and I don't find them too, I kind of see them as more kind of like trolls, some of them, and they're just troublemakers, and they're very bitter against Islam, and or against religion as a whole, and just hateful. But I don't actually see him as one of those people. I actually see him as a genuine person. This is my experience. I could be wrong, but this is my experience anyway. I think he is genuine in what he's doing. So I have this video. I came across this video of his. I have this video of his. Yeah, I'm not my video collection of people. Like, what's Mufti's video collections of people? Yeah, कौन से video? My special webcam hacking. Right, unveiling the ex-Muslims. Not into that peeping thing, Right, so anyway, here are his questions. So I'm going to read them first, and then we go through them, people. 1. Breastfeeding makes you related in Islam. So that is a rather intimate one. That's one. It makes you related. You can relate it to the... So we're going to come back to that one. Okay, next, we're going to come back to them. Let's read through them first, and then we come back to them. Robin Singh. All right. Sasriyakal. Sasriyakal, Robin Singh ji. Right, so what's question number 2? Not question. These are not questions. These are beliefs he's saying which are in Islam. Magic is real. Magic is real. Hocus pocus. Number 3, an adopted child cannot take... It keeps closing on me. I'm going to end up swearing. Badnaam ho jaunga. I'm going to get name and shame, on the live. I don't want that, So, number 3, an adopted child cannot take your family name or inherit from you. Number 4, if you divorce your wife 3 times, you cannot marry her again until she marries and has the sexual intercourse with another man who is not obviously in the same marriage. That would be totally awkward. It'd be like 3 people in a marriage. So we're going to come back to that one as well. We're going to come back to all of these. No fighting in the sacred months. That's a... Chalo. Dekhte hain. Prayer for getting a wife and a new animal are the same. Oof. Brings a whole new meaning to the word riding the beast. Huh? Ye kya ho raha hai yaar? Ye ho kya raha hai yaar? This one too controversial, So these are allegedly Islamic rulings, and I'm going to explain all of these and explain why this is all wrong. But patience, people, patience. Patience is a virtue. Wipe your butt. What? Wipe your butt with an odd number of stones. Yeah. Will this brick do? Bro, can you pass me that concrete slab? Can 2 of you carry it here, please? Now in sync, please, if you can move in the same motion. Yeah, well, in the same motion, I said. So we're going to come to that. That's... Men cannot wear gold and silk. Imitating, number 9, imitating non-Muslims is haram. And number 10, pants above the ankles or hell. And pants, you see, for British people, we're probably picturing underpants around the ankles at this stage, which is a very, you sickos, all of you picturing that right now, huh? Picturing that, you sickos, toba, toba, toba. See, this is what I get as an audience. Pants, American pants, yeah, trousers are also around the ankles. No, not in that sense, yeah. Not as in dropped, as in up. Yeah, you people, toba, toba, toba. Not an innocent soul left on this earth. Yeah. Kahan phas ke hum baba. Right, so anyway, let's focus, people, let's focus. Let's take these one at a time. So Abdullah Sameer has gone through these, showing that, look, these are in Islam, and this is the ruling. So if you go to his YouTube video, it's called 10 Strange Rulings in Islam. And
breast milk affects lineage. This doesn't particularly affect us today because we don't hire foster moms to breastfeed. Strange things that most people would not be aware of. The only thing is they probably didn't think about how strange they are. Number one, breastfeeding makes you related.
So this is the first one. So let's take these rulings one at a time, people. So, all right, I'm just going to keep this open in front of me. Right, breastfeeding makes you related. You see, first of all, this, Abdullah Sameer goes on to explain this is for anybody, like for grown-ups as well. Now, that is not the case according to the majority of Muslims. This is talking about infants, and it was talking about in general having a like kind of foster mother status. So that is true. Muslims do generally believe that if a child was of a toddler, infant stage. So for example, generally the Quran says, وَالْوَالِدَاتُ يُرْضِعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ حَوْلَيْنِ كَامِلٍ. So up to like 2 years, that kind of so the Quran mentions 2 years. So, you know, an infant that's suckling, that's feeding, and if a woman was to feed him, or she was to breastfeed him, she's not his mum, but she's like a mother to him. Okay, so he would always have that motherly status with her, and he obviously, I mean, not that he would anyway, but he, like as in marry her, for example, he wouldn't, but even her daughters would then be like his sisters. They're not his actual sisters, as in there isn't like the same lineage or inheritance or things like this, but it's just they have that kind of respectable, honorable status that you've shared a similar mother in some feature. This is actually a maqam of dignity. Okay, that's what Islam said. That these are simply just a dignified status, that if a woman fed you like that, she's like your mom. Okay, there's nothing, this is not about grown-up men and some kind of fetish to kind of say, Yar, where can I get some protein? Oh, it's been a good session at the gym today. Yeah, where are some of these? I need some proteinat, some proteinat. That's not what it's talking about. Grown men don't just go suckling off lactating mothers. They don't just go like, hell yeah, I'll take some of that milk, right? And that's not how it works. And in fact, some people even consider it haram, like the Hanafi madhab and people like that. But, okay, the Maliki madhab doesn't consider the consumption of that milk haram. It doesn't consider it haram. But it doesn't say that you become relatives, okay? None of these. The Salafis say that. And yes, there is an opinion that they're trying to base this on that is not even generally the mainstream Islamic opinion, okay? That you can have some kind of mahramiyah like this. They're basing it on one isolated narration of one of the companions of the one of the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who the other companions and wives said that they got this wrong, they disagreed with. Okay, so So that's just a misunderstanding. They said that they've misunderstood this, or maybe they're saying the Prophet said this to them, but this is not what we understand from Islam. So that is not true, people. So it's not, but like scientific evidence says, a man's semen becomes part of the woman's DNA if they have sex. What? 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 Oh wait, they don't go. Latest scientific says that a man's semen becomes part of the woman's DNA if they have sex. Huh? Yeah. What am I reading aloud? Lucky Google doesn't just hear me and say, okay, and just brings up all. It thinks this is some kind of a command. It thinks I'm Googling something. Right, no, I'm definite that's not how it works. You don't, men's semen doesn't just become part of the DNA. Oh, do you mean of the child that's going to be born? Well, that's obvious that the man's semen and the woman's, obviously the egg, it's going to fertilize and both are going to contribute chromosomes. That's obvious. If that's what you mean, then of course. And can the nourishing milk of a lactating mother to a very young infant contribute to the nourishment of the child? Can it impact them? I don't know. Maybe it can. I don't know. I mean, it contributes to the nourishment. I don't think it contributes in any way to the DNA, but maybe to the nourishment and stuff like that. Right. The only works. Well, see, I'm going to find out this info. Just don't send any video links and images here. Guys are like, here Mufti, I've got a video link right here of lactating, and and I'm like, oh, here we go again. Right, okay, right, so the next rule, so just to clarify, people, that's not what the ruling, and that's wrong. Ruling number 2, magic is real. Magic isn't real, right? I've got a very lengthy video. It's on YouTube. The magic is not real, okay? There's no such thing as magic being... Now, I've explained in my video, when we say magic is real, the ulama in the past put this into categories. Okay, and Fakhruddin al-Razi, I think, categorizes it into, 7-8 kind of categories, and they can be reduced. Ibn Ashur, the great Maliki legend, further reduces them into 3. Now, he says these 3 are what magic applies to, what people in the past, and we can even today, to some extent, use the term magic for. Now, he explains number 1 is things like, so number 1 would be like mind control or hypnosis, or that kind of, where you insinuate behavior. And people that are good at this, I know people in NLP claim that they can kind of embed commands. I know hypnotists claim they can do stuff like this. That kind of mind control, priming people, that you can call magic, okay? I mean, it's not magic as in, but people in the past would have called that magic. So that is one layer that everybody agrees in the past that falls under this thing. When they said magic is real, this is one of the things they were referring to, okay? And this is mentioned in the books, hundreds of it, like Fakhruddin al-Razi in his tafsir. It's mentioned by Ibn Ashur in his tafsir. So that is real, okay? They mention, and part of this can be things like, so that this can include things like illusions. Okay, so you can have illusions. Sorry, that's a separate. Sorry. The second category is things like illusions, people that actually do trickery and the sleight of hand, like the quickness of your hand, tricking things like magicians do today, hide things without you realizing, pull a rabbit out of a hat. That kind of thing people did in the past as well, like the great Indian rope trick. and this kind of stuff, and climbing up a rope and doing all this kind of stuff. This is usually trickery, but people call that magic, and that does exist, not as in there isn't a way to do it, but as in to the perceiver it appears that this is what they saw. And that is the magic that is mentioned in the Quran as well. So Allah says, وَيُخَيَّلُ إِلَيْهِمْ, that it appears to them as a khayal, as an imagination, that the snakes were moving. So they put things like quicksilver, mercury, and that inside these rods that would react with the sunlight and things, and it would make the thing move. So this, it's not that there wasn't a trick behind it, but to the person who is unaware of the trick, it is like magic. So that is the second category. That does exist, but once again, today, it's still called magic, and people in the past called it magic. The third category is things like potions. Okay. Now, potions existed, and as they still do today, as medication, that can impair or that can impact your perception of reality. So today, like certain psychedelic drugs can do that, psychoactive drugs can do that, mushrooms, things like this can make you see things that are not there. Now, like that, there are other potions as well, like things like, for example, lithium, which is naturally found, that is a mood stabilizer, so it can stabilize people's moods. You find things that are like, that can numb out pain, morphine and all these kind of things, like drugs today, even opium we discussed earlier on. Things like this, aphrodisiacs, by the way, were part of this, because you can boost a person's sexual... So this, why does this matter? But this matters, you see, like let's just say, we spoke earlier on about the magic blue pill today. Nutty kind, but let's just say, like, because people in the past were obsessed with finding a kind of sex drug. They were obsessed with this. If you read the books of the past, people, the kings and royalty and aristocracy and chemists of the past were obsessed in finding sexual boosters for men. So they would find certain plants, certain things, and a lot of these sex things are from trial and error. So, whether it's going to be the makeup, the chemical makeup of Viagra, for example, or stuff like this, these things are going to be based on certain things that have their roots in nature, those chemicals. Now, and hence they impact the male kind of body in that way. So can you imagine a person that in the past, if somebody through trial and error, as people have, they kind of herbal versions of Viagra and things like this, can you imagine a person whose love life is dead, and then all of a sudden, some Peer Saab or some person says, here's this magic potion. I've said these magic words on them, make your husband drink it, and he has a sip, and lo and behold, there's his deputy has stood to attention. He's like, it's like the Salaf in the past used to say that, this is actually from the Salaf in the past. They used to say that sahibi, they used to call the other fella, the mini fella, they used to call him my companion, sahibi. They used to say, sahibi la sam'a lahu wa la basar. They used to say, like, sahibi a'ma wa asam, that my companion, my mini friend, is both blind and deaf. That once he rises, then he doesn't listen to anybody. It's like Attila the Hun. Chaos. It's like, what? And then it's like people afterwards would say, there was once civilization here. Bloody hell, that's one hell of a powerful potion. Can we buy some? So the point is that, can you imagine this in the past would be like magic? That doing this, because it could rescue relationships, can you add a few aphrodisiacs, a person's in the mood all of a sudden he's madly in love, You see, things which boost the oxytocins in the brain. See, the oxytocin is that kind of lovey-dovey brain. I mean, that lovey-dovey kind of neurotransmitter floating in the brain when everything's in love. You know, when you're like walk in that cloud nine and everything's in slow motion. It's a Bollywood movie. When the girl's dupatta is just flying, floating. It's that Bollywood kind of scene. Scene chal raha hai yaar. This is so. Right, so oxytocin in the brain. Yes, it does. It does boost the whole lovey-dovey kind of. Right, so it boosts that kind of. So my point is, these things would have been magic. Right, so now. No, not serotonin. Serotonin is to do with depression. Oxytocin is the neurotransmitter dealing with that lovey-dovey kind of feel. But anyway, the point is, this isn't a saying a psychoactive drug lesson going on, right? The point is that these things in the past were considered magic. Then you also had folklore magic, like somebody's going to turn you into, like turning a prince into a frog, that kind of thing. This thing is nonsense. And yes, many Muslims in the past may have believed in these things. Not all. Imam Abu Hanifa, it's transmitted from, he rejected this outright. Many people did outright reject it. Many people did. Ibn Hazm speaks on it. Even Fakhruddin al-Razi problematizes it. Even Ghazali kind of problematizes certain things. You have many of the Hanafiya, people like Abu Bakr al-Jassas, you've got other people, they do problematize and show that this stuff doesn't make any sense. And in later days, you've got a lot more scholars, Ibn Ashur and all these people show that this is nonsense. Okay, so it's not true to say all Muslims believe this. And yes, in the past, because people were so prone to superstition. But you have to remember in the past, like if you're going to say 500 years ago, people believed in magic, but then the whole world believed in that kind of superstitious magic. And they were just one of so many people, regardless of religion. So that's the important thing to understand. The religion does not say that, and I've got a detailed video explaining that. Right, so we've got the next. An adopted child cannot take your family name or inherit from you. I've got a whole detailed section on this. It is available on YouTube, where I do explain, I do give the fatwa that a child today can take your family name. They can even inherit. That these laws today are different with the trajectory. Yes, in the time of Islam, in the early time of Islam, the Arabs were they had very deep and strong roots in tribal society, where lineage was everything. And therefore, to upset that would have been a problem, because it would have just created discord. Now, one of the things that Islam does is it maintains the urf, the convention of a people. So I have mentioned that, look, names today in the, like, for example, you could take the Indo-Pak society, mean nothing. And a good example of this is a woman can take the husband's name if she wants. And this happens in countries like Pakistan all the time. And the ulama don't say it's haram. Right? So that's not true. And Abdullah Sameer, I believe, is from Pakistan, and he ought to know that. So the thing is that people take these names. Ulama don't describe it as haram anymore, because in countries like Pakistan, we don't have lineages like that anymore. And your surname doesn't mean anything anymore, because people in one family, ridiculously, have like 4 different... Pakis are just lost when it comes to surnames. And obviously, I mean, we're all a part of that. Like, they will just give this son a different surname, that son a different surname. They'll call him Hussein, call him Mahmoud, call him Khan, call the girls Parveen, call the girls... These are surnames. Bibi, Begum, all these kind of surnames, which are just generic surnames, and they don't mean anything. Okay. Right. So... And my point of saying that is it was the same. So you will see these same ulama that objected to the child taking the surname, they object to the wife taking the surname. They say this is haram. And hence Arab women don't take the surname, even today pretty much. They don't take the husband's surname, but the Indo-Pak Muslim women do. Because you could say it's a British thing, but it's not haram according to them. Right, and that's even the Maulanas. Right, so no fighting in the sacred months. This is a bit of a redundant one. There's no point kind of going on too much about this. I've got a video clip on this where I speak about the Nasi. What was the Nasi? And I do mention that there was, that there are these 4 months that that the Arab custom, this is pre-Islamic, that they had a custom that during these sacred months we will not fight. And that allowed, it was kind of like, it didn't mean that you would fight in the others, but it just meant that it was a custom that nobody kind of violated. So everybody always had safe passage in Arabia during those months. So it allowed for commerce, it allowed for things like, because when the caravans used to come, it allowed for safe travel, it allowed for the Hajj, people wanting to go on the Hajj, which was pre-Islamic as well. Now, I have explained that I do find it interesting that some research has been done that Muslims were meant to, like the Jews, also due to the leap kind of month, because of it being based on lunar months, they were meant to kind of go back, like add in an extra leap month every so often, 3 years or so, but they stopped doing that, and that messed everything up, because these 4 months were meant to be during the spring period. So it allowed for crops, it allowed for animals to kind of reproduce, it allowed for these things. Hence the Jewish calendar is still quite static, but the Arabian calendar started to just drift and just go into kind of free fall. So it just keeps changing all year round. But in essence, the research that I've shared on YouTube is that that was not the original position, that people used to every 3 years have a leap month to recalibrate the calendar. So moving on, so that's what that is. That's not that absurd. Prayer for getting a wife and a new animal is the same. Now this is nonsense. Now he does quote a hadith. This is a weak and unreliable hadith. It is in Abu Dawood. It's in the book of Jami'un Nikah, where he says, you see, and the hadith, first of all, the hadith reads, إِذَا تَزَوَّجَ أَحَدُكُمْ امْرَأَةً أَوْ اشْتَرَى خَادِمًا. If a person was to marry or to bring a servant, then he should make a dua, oh Allah, ask you for the good of this person, and I seek refuge in the bad of this person. And then it goes on to say, or if a person purchased an animal, and it mentions like a camel, then let him hold the kind of the hump part or the front part and say a dua like that, oh Allah, I seek refuge in the harm of this animal and ask you for the good of it. And this hadith, okay, now even though Albani said this is fine, there are so many problems. Let me just highlight. First of all, this is absolutely da'if hadith. Okay, absolutely da'if. It begins with Uthman ibn Abi Shayba. Okay, he transmits from Abdullah ibn Sa'id, who transmits from Sulaiman ibn Hayyan, from Ibn Ajlan, from Amr ibn Shu'aib, from his father, from his grandfather. Right, so that's the... Now, first of all, Uthman ibn Abi Shayba. Abdullah ibn Ahmad ibn Hanbal had transmitted that he was a kadhab, a liar. Okay, and that he would fabricate hadith. That chain immediately is thrown out. Ibn Kharrash said he would fabricate hadith, but Abdullah ibn Ahmad ibn Hanbal said he was a liar, kadhab. Okay, you had, and some people said, oh, he used to take anything, transmit anything. Darqutni said, إنه أخذ كتاب يقال إنه أخذ كتاب غير محدث. It is said that he took the book of somebody who wasn't even a hadith scholar and started transmitting it. Hence, he said a lot of crazy, wacko stuff. That's him in the chain, and the chain begins with him. So it begins with somebody who is called a kadhab. And many people said about him one thing, that he never used to even know the Quran. But one thing good about him is he apparently had an amazing sense of humor. Right, the second thing, Ibn Ajlan in this chain, Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan said he has a problem. He's a problematic narrator. Darqutni said he suffered from dementia during the latter part of his life and therefore came up with weird narrations. He's in this chain as well, Ibn Ajlan. Then you've got this part of Amr ibn Shu'ayb and Abihi and Jaddi. First of all, Amr ibn Shu'ayb and Abihi and Jaddi, they're not even sure who his, when they say his grandfather, which one are they talking about? Because the great-grandfather, they agree, is Amr ibn al-As, but is the son Muhammad or Abdullah. And then his son is Shu'ayb and his son is Amr. So some people say it's Muhammad, which, cuts the chain anyway, makes it mursal. Those who say it's Abdullah, even then, Yahya ibn Ma'in said this is not a connected chain. He had found a book with the narrations from his kind of grandfather with this lineage and started to transmit it. Okay, so it's not actually something that he heard. So all of these people are in this chain, beginning with somebody who is accused of being a fabricator of hadith. So people, this is da'if. Okay, so if you're going to base an argument against Islam, then I think at least it should be based on something sound that we can then say, cha, ab maza aayega takkar mein. This kind of stuff is a joke. We need, you can do better than that. You can do better, right? So, okay, now wipe your butt with an odd number of stones. Okay, so this is a weird. Right, let's pile out the stones, lads. The real kind of spiky stones. This is another level of masochism going down, I tell you. But look, people, you have to understand something. This is a complete misportrayal of Islam. First of all, this rests on two things. One is the custom that many people in many parts of the world where water is scarce relied on. And that is that if they went to the toilet, they would rely on whatever was excessively available to purify themselves. Now, water in a desert is available, but it's not excessively available. Hence, the Arabs did used to do istijmar. This is not an Islamic practice. This is just what the Arabs and many people, even in India, Pakistan, even non-Muslims, do this. Like if they're in a place, and even though water is more prevalent in places like India than it is in Arabia, but people will still, in the past, more so when technology was less and irrigation was less, that they would use stones. Obviously, we're not talking about like using a brick. Somebody said, why not sand? Yeah, sand. This one, genius, this one. Can you bring that bucket of sand? Are they going to put out a fire? Or do you want them to just block the exit hole? Yeah, let me just lie down. You brought the sand, yeah? Have you got a funnel? Daldo, just fill it up. Problem solved. Why not sand? Right. Whatever you're smoking, you need to share it. You need to share it. The good stuff. Right, so... Okay, so now that's one part, okay, that people use stones. In certain places they use leaves, in certain places. So this is nothing to do with religion. This is just what they used. Islam actually encouraged, and the Prophet actually encouraged using water afterwards. And that's in a very famous hadith. The Prophet said that there were certain people that used to always make sure that they took water with them. And the Prophet said, encouraging others, that look, these are people who Allah loves. Like they love, Inna Allaha yuhibbul mutatahhirin. He loves those people who want to be very clean. So look, now, so let's not misrepresent. So that it is true that people, not just in Arabia, in many parts of the world where they don't have water, do use other things like stones. Obviously, they would be like kind of like large pebbles, like those kind of stones, you know, those polished, those kind of stones that you get. Not obviously like a brick, like smack a brick in his head. It obviously wasn't anything like that. So, yeah, so that's that. The second part is, why did the Prophet say use odd numbers? Then if you are going to, whoever is going to use istijmar, use stones and other things, let him use an odd number. Why was the Prophet saying this? Well, let me answer. Is this because we're going to say something like, because God is one and that's an odd number? I'm sorry. Duh. Obviously not. Don't be dumb. That's just as dumb as it gets, okay? Right, that's... Where did they put the stone after? They frame it... They just... After... This is what they do with the stone after. Once they've got it, they go, hey, catch! And he goes... And then they go, here, catch another. And the guy's like, woo! And they go, catch another. And he starts, and that's how juggling began. That's the history behind juggling, people. Because everybody kept throwing istijmar stones in Arabia, and people, they don't want to hold on to them. So that's how we ended up with jugglings. Right, so now, okay, this, you see, you have to understand something. In the Arabs' time, in the Arabian time, in the time of the Prophet, people generally did things, they kind of did things twice, like especially in things like this, that they would just go, and generally a lot of people do a lot of things just generally like twice, like they'll do something and just repeat it once more. So the Prophet was aware that people were just going to clean themselves, and they would just probably clean once and then just do it once again. And what the Prophet said is, if you are going to do this, you're not going to use water, do an odd number. Why? Because an odd number would mean one more. Go once more, clean once more, meaning that make it extra, you know, just go that extra step. That's what this was. This wasn't trying to say stick on one because God is one. That would be as dumb as this gets, right? Because people generally just did thing once and then twice, once over. And if you're aware of this, you'd probably say, hey, go once more. Do that one step more. Like we would say that. This wasn't some kind of superstition. Even if, and I'm not saying some Muslims didn't take this as a superstition, they did. But most of them recognized this was just a ruling for kind of, what they call mubalagha, or for like going an extra step in cleanliness. That's all. Okay, so that's what used to happen. Next one, men cannot wear gold and silk. I have a video, it is on YouTube. I have explained that, I have explained that, look, there is a disagreement with this. Men can wear gold and silk. And that is actually even my fatwa. I've got a YouTube video. I do explain how scholars like Ibn Daqiq al-Eid did bring, he brings several hadith to demonstrate that at least 5 companions, if not more, died wearing gold. So he says, if anything, there is no such thing as a consensus that people can't wear gold. And he says that, you know, that this is a debate. I do accept, though, that the general culture has gone with the understanding that men don't wear gold and they don't wear silk. I have explained that the origin of this ruling, where it emerges from. And that was because during the Prophet's lifetime, the lifestyle of the Arabs was a warrior lifestyle. They were, if anything, akin to like what you had later on, the Viking lifestyle. They were very much like that. They lived off raiding, that was kind of Arabia. They weren't an agricultural people. and it all depended on the warriors, the fightingness, that ability, that kind of culture pervaded. This was even before Islam came. So in those societies, what brings value is the ability to kind of be war ready if a war was to break out. Hence the Prophet, not just the Prophet, people in general relied on these kind of characteristics. Now, during the Prophet's lifetime in Medina, Medina was attacked and potentially attacked on several occasions. And the Prophet himself was attacked on several occasions, and people were attacked. So the Prophet had a safeguarding duty to make sure that people were on standby. They were on alert. And they couldn't afford, it wasn't the time to live a life of luxury, even though some people did have luxuries. And the Prophet did dissuade a life of luxury for people. But that was the call of the time. You know, the Prophet said a time will come when you will see luxury, but that day is not today. Like today, we need to be alert. We need to be on standby. And rightly so, because they were attacked, there were people that died, there were these things. So things like men wearing silk, and it was seen as a very kind of, it was seen as two things in that culture. It was one, seen as luxury, and two, a bit effeminate. So the Prophet dissuaded this. He kind of dissuaded them, and he said, look, don't wear silk and don't wear gold. Because these were seen as kind of like, one, womanly, feminine attributes, and two, they seem to take away from that culture that the men needed. So that's why the Prophet said that, and that is my understanding, and there are many scholars that have said that. And I do accept that, although many scholars have gone with the ruling that these things are haram, but this is the kind of origin and how this ruling emerged. So, and I've got a lengthier video explaining that, so you can watch that there. Right, now we're right at the end. Ninth, imitating non-Muslims is haram. I've got a whole video explaining this, that look, Muslims today using this in a ridiculous manner. This is a modern phenomenon that Muslims have started resorting to this ruling to say man tashabbaha biqawmin. In the past, Muslims were not that insecure. They were just absolutely fine. They did, they dressed as other people dressed. Ibn Hazm speaks about how he lived in Spain and dressed differently. You can see how Lisanuddin Ibn al-Khatib, the great historian and adib and scholar, Maliki scholar from Muslim Spain, when he speaks of the Muslim kings in Al-Andalus, they all used to dress with the dress of the Christian kings. They used to dress in that style. They adopted that style. The Muslim kings of India, the Mughals and so on, used to dress like the Persian kings and so on. This wasn't like people just went with the culture. It wasn't. This thing is a modern phenomenon that Muslims have started to resort to. Don't copy the West. This doesn't, in the past, people weren't that freaked out. And this hadith, I've said in the past, and I've said today, that Muslims who use this are naively doing this, because this whole hadith, no Muslim or no mainstream Muslim accepts this hadith. Because it begins by saying things like, that we must go and fight all non-Muslims, we must do this, nobody accepts that. And in fact, if you watch my clip called The War Wager Hadith Paradox, that why hadith dogmatism is paralyzed and gridlocked by that paradox I present. It's on YouTube, you can check that out. But this is wrongly used. I agree with Abdullah Sameer that it's a ridiculous ruling, but it's wrongly used, and it's actually a modern interpretation that recently Muslims have used to come back at modernity with. So what's happened is, when modernity has arrived, Muslims have got confused, and they've kind of tried to dig deeper, and they've used certain things, rulings, to kind of reinforce and validate themselves. And this has been one. Right, so, and the final one, people, and we'll kind of wrap it up with that: pants above ankles or hell. And this one, this one quite naughty, you know, this one having you dropping, raising, yeah, you don't know should the pants go down or up, yeah. Should I drop them, should I raise them? Confused, right? So the whole thing, this is ridiculous as a ruling. First of all, Abdullah Sameer is right, certain Muslims do make a big deal out of this, but this has not been historically the Islamic trend. Historically, Muslims like Ibn Abdul Bar, look, that's 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago has written in his Istidhkar, in his other books, that this ruling is simply referring to arrogance. It's referring to people who have a trend and they're trying to be arrogant with it. It does not refer to people who are just generally doing that. Imam Nawawi, reiterates the same thing that Ibn Abdul Bar said. That's like we're talking over 800 years ago. You see, many scholars have said that. Ibn Hajar reiterates the same thing. So it's not fair to say that this is what Muslims have believed. But in the past, it is true that Muslim dress generally, as in the Eastern world today, has been like the izar. They wear the kind of sarong, and the sarong usually is worn a bit higher up, usually so for easy movement, right? For quick acts, for quick movement. Yeah, these sickos, you know. I have some sickos tuning into me. Their minds wander, I tell you. Right, so they wear a sarong, and in recent times they've obviously changed that to have more of the shalwar or the sirwal or whatever you want to call it, and then the trousers. But these things are absolutely fine. There's nothing to do with scholars in the past have said. But you're right. Today, some scholars have started to reinforce this, especially the Salafis, and some Hanafis. For some reason, they've kind of. Some Hanafis kind of lost it a bit as well, but the other madhabs don't accept this, and historically they didn't accept this. So that's a response to these 10 things. I did want to speak about the Sana'a manuscript, but we've really gone on too late. I'll give a brief description and then I'll go into that inshallah next week. So just to sum this up, that look, these 10 rulings, a lot of them do exist in this. Oh right, did I miss one? Right, damn, I missed one out. Sorry. The divorce 3 times. I missed that out. That was number 4. If your wife divorces you 3 times, you cannot marry her again. If you divorce your wife, I've got a whole video on this explaining that that's not true, that many people have said you can, even right from the early days. And what was the context to this divorce thing? It was actually a safeguarding issue that got tilted and reversed and put on its head. That it actually came because the Arabs were oppressing. So what they would do is they would divorce the wife, and then they would say, okay, to punish her. And then when she was in her iddah, like a grace period, so she's not really fully married, she's kind of in that grace period, leaving. But when she would reach the end, they would just take her back, revoke it. And then she would be like, oh, okay. And then they would divorce her again. And then she would be in the grace period for another 3 menstrual cycles. Then they would take her back. And they would do this indefinitely, just to torture women. So they would be stuck. They can't remarry another man. And they're not really married to him. And Allah condemns that in the Quran. And He says, وَلَا تَذَرُوهُنْ. He says, do not leave them. Do not leave her. لَا تَذَرُوهَا كَالْمُعَلَّقَةِ. Do not leave them just suspended like that. Like إِمْسَاكٌ بِمَعْرُوفٍ أو تَسْرِيحٌ بِإِحْسَانٍ. That's a verse of the Quran. Either hold on to them in kindness or let them go gracefully. Do not do this. So then what the Quran introduced was to say, okay, you've only got 3 talaqs now. And then I tell you what, if you divorce her, you cannot even remarry her again. Why? Because you can't play these games with these women. And this ruling came actually as a great relief to the women. And it came as a safeguarding. What happened is this got twisted on its head with time. Then some Muslim men, like idiots, started to say, talaq, 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 talaq. Oh my God, I've said 3 talaqs. Oh my God, what do I do? And then the woman's like, oh my God. And she's suffering. And now this talaq thing has just become another curse. But the ruling in the Quran was not like that. But today, some people, you're right, Muslim culture, unfortunately, has kind of resulted in people doing things like this. Yet many people have provided solutions, even right in the past. Look, right from the Tabi'een, the son-in-law of Abu Huraira, Sa'id ibn Musayyib, one of the indirect teachers of Imam Malik, one of the great fuqaha of the school of Medina. His fatwa back then was a woman. He said here about, oh, unless a woman has sexual intercourse. Why was this said? Now, this was simply said at the time to show that, look, there is no going back. That meaning she will go. That's it. This isn't a game. You know, you can't just kind of say, well, but some people even oppose this thing right at the beginning, like people like Sa'id ibn Musayyib, who said that's not true. He said that. I mean, he's from the Tabi'een. So you do have this, and he was called the greatest of the Tabi'een. And one of the greatest hadith narrators of this ummah. He said that's not true. So you do have that dissent, but I do accept that although many ulama accepted it, they did say that's not true. Many amongst them said it's all about safeguarding, and if there was maslahah, if people did it by accident or they did it out of anger, then many of them said that talaq don't count. Amongst the early Malikis, Qadi Ismail, you've got people like Ibn Ashur, the great Maliki legend, you've got people like Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah in between, Ibn Taymiyyah, many other people in between saying things like, look, if it was out of anger, it doesn't count. They've said a lot of these things. So let's be fair. Like, look, yes, there is a huge breadth of opinions and the solution is there as well. But I do agree with Abdullah Sameer that there is a lot of ignorance, unfortunately, amongst Muslims. And that's amongst many people, many religious followers. And many Muslims have got caught in the sectarian kind of turf wars going on. So their scholars will sometimes tell them, this is haram, you can't do this, you have to marry her off. And they're really just doing it to defend their kind of sectarian opinion. And, you know, it's so wrong what these people are doing. I agree with Abdullah Sameer on that part. That, you know, it's wrong what these people are doing, what these Mulvis and scholars push just to a sectarian narrative, just to get their group. They screw over the lives of many people. It's horrible to see. I spoke just the other day to somebody who, you know, and I speak to, whenever I'm speaking to people that, you know, this one couple, their lives have been ruined because of this, you know, because he said talaq and you know, he was angry. And I said to them, look, this is fine. You know, you can get back together. But it's, and they want to get back together, but now the girl's family are saying no, because we have been told by this Maulana there's no room for you to get back together, so you better not get back together, and this and that, and placing unnecessary pressure. It is wrong, people. It is wrong to intervene in the lives of others, even if they are your kin, right? Do not, you know, if it's your sister, if it's your daughter, if it's your whoever, right? You cannot impose. Allah says, وَلَا تَعْضُلُوهُنَّ. You cannot prevent them or kind of control them in their matters of nikah. And Allah says that, وَلَا تَعْضُلُوهُنَّ, in the matter of their nikah. That's in Surah Baqarah. Right, so, but I do accept that, unfortunately, especially in the Indo-Pak world, there is, I don't think this is cross-cultural throughout the Muslim world as a whole. I think it's a lot less in the Arab world. It does happen, but it's a lot less. In other parts like Turkey, in other parts like Malaysia, it's not, I don't think it's as bad. But in places like India, Pakistan, this is quite horrendous. And, you know, and may Allah grant the people enlightenment, may He grant these victims ease wherever they are. And we really just need education. But so, although I agree with the ignorance and the culture of what Abdullah Sameer has highlighted, but this is not what Islam has just said. Islam gave a ruling based on a situation. There have been many, there's many solutions with that ruling that many ulama have said, like beginning with Sa'id ibn Musayyib, who said that hadith's not even true like that. That's not true. Women don't need to, you know, have things. To other rulings, like there is no talaq in anger. There is a hadith for that. It's in Abu Dawud, la talaqa fi ighlaq. It's a hadith, right? That many people, Qadi Ismail, other people defended that, right? So you've got that ruling there. You've got the fact that 3 talaqs can still count as one. Many people champion that. Ibn Ashur speaks about it. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, Ibn Taymiyyah. So many books have been written on it. But just because this is a Salafis have championed this kind of these rulings. So other sects have started to bash this ruling just to get back at the Salafis and the Wahhabis. But I feel that's wrong, because the casualties of this theological warfare, the casualties of this war are the common public, the common man and woman who simply just want to save their marriages. So, right, so may Allah make things easy for this. This is my response to these 10 questions. I hope it's been of some help. Guys, as always,